Actor Jeremy Irons came across a rare monkey during his stay at the Tollygunge Club on Monday. "I was having my breakfast with my son, Sam, and suddenly, he discovered the monkey holding my chair and looking at me all relaxed. I was thinking what he was going to do next. Will he sit on my lap? Is that his etiquette?" he joked. The actor, who bagged a Tony Award for Best Actor in a Play, an Academy Award for Best Actor and Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Miniseries or a Movie, is in Kolkata to see the work of the Hope Foundation, a charity he has been raising funds for. In a candid chat with CT over breakfast, he spoke to us about his reason to visit Kolkata. Read on. "You have been in Kolkata for a while. What brought you here?" "Basically, I have been supporting the Hope Foundation with their fundraising in the UK and Ireland. I thought it was important to come here and see what they are doing. So, when I am home, this will help me raise funds. I can talk about what I saw here." Did you get any chance to watch Indian films? Are you aware of the fact that the Kolkata International Film Festival will commence this week? I have to say I don't see many films, either Indian or American. I rarely watch films if not to judge for the Oscars. I have seen a few Indian films. I always admired how colorful they are, the mix of dance, songs, romance. They are very different from Western films. I worked with Dev Patel, but he is Western. I was asked this year to come to the Kolkata International Film Festival. I wasn't able to. I'm getting one of my sons married at the end of the month in England. My wife, Sinead Cusack, an Irish actress, has told me that I have to be home to do the preparations. The festival will start soon after I leave. I know that Volker Schlondorf, German filmmaker, will be here. He and I are great friends. If you see him, will you please give him my best wishes, laughs. You worked in The Man Who Knew Infinity with Dev Patel. You also got to know about this mathematician, Ramanujan. How was your experience? I was very excited, as I always am, to read about this man, Ramanujan. I did not know about his character or my character, Hardy, an English mathematics professor. I didn't study. I never comprehend pure mathematics. To me, math sounds boring. I don't have that sort of a mind. I have a more artistic mind, language-oriented, rather than a mathematical mind. For Hardy, a typical Englishman of his time, 1913-14, meeting Ramanujan, who couldn't explain where his pure mathematics ideas came from, apart from saying his goddess placed these equations on his tongue when he was asleep, was extraordinary. Ramanujan's theories are still being studied, and many of his theories were the very start of the modern computer. It harps back to Shakespeare. People always spoke about how this man, from the middle of England and son of a glovemaker, could write this beautiful language which changed the English language forever. It must be somebody else. If you see Ramanujan, you see something can happen to the mind of people who come from a very humble and uneducated background. They can be born with a certain way of thinking. That is inexplicable and wonderful. You've spoken in an interview about being offered the role of Bond once. Tell us more about it. No, I was not offered. One of the producers came on a set and we talked about it. Strangely, it was something I never wanted to do. I believe that the stamp of James Bond is strong and that it will get in the way of doing other works. I always wanted to do very diverse work and not be typecast. Among the actors who've played the character, who do you think makes the best Bond? I think Sean Connery. From working with Meryl Streep in films like The French Lieutenant's Woman to playing Alfred Pennyworth in a Justice League film, you've had a long film career that includes the Oscar win for Reversal of Fortune. But from your career, it seems it was always theater over films. Is that true? Well, of course, I started with theater. That last play I did was 2 years ago. I always like to go back to theater. The best writings are always found in theater because the very nature of theater is that it is a verbose medium. Film has words, but it is more of a visual medium. Therefore, if you like deeply written characters, you will find them in theater. It is a very nice balance that you go from theater to films and go back to theater and so on, if you can do both. In the West, especially in the UK, theater is taken very seriously, even when a child is in school. So many great film actors come from the theater background: Alan Rickman, Gary Oldman, Maggie Smith and so on. Do you think having training on stage helps? I do, although a lot of the great American film actors didn't start on stage. They started with films. I don't think you have to start on stage. But theater allows you to practice in a relatively private way. When I started theater in Bristol Old Vic, we would do a new play every month. Within a course of a year, I could play 20 roles. Now we don't have a theater tradition. There is less theater and there is less subsidized theater. Except for the West End, theater doesn't make money. That's why it needs to be subsidized and has to be subsidized by the government. And government has reduced the subsidy. For example, my son, Max Irons, actor, is working on a cable television series. But he got less opportunity. But I don't think you really have to go through theater. Acting careers go up and down and it is very useful if you are not working so much in films to be able to work in theater for 4 and 5 years and then you come back to films. Audience always wants new faces. They have their own favorites. So, I think it is useful to work in radio, in theater, in films and television and in Europe, America and so on. You're 71, with a huge body of work in theater and films. At this juncture, do things like legacy and passing it into a younger generation cross your mind? No, because I think the new generations have to learn themselves. They will look back and maybe admire something. But I think one of the problems today is that we don't look back in history or experience. We are moving on all the time. As far as leaving a legacy, my children are my legacy. I don't think my work is my legacy. I think I am just a storyteller. And those stories have been told and will be told again in future by different people. The social media also became a platform to name and shame perpetrators. What is your take on that? I think, like all revolutionary movements, it swung too far. It will swing back and get into a better situation. I think we are going through a time of change. I think inherent damages are being done. People are shamed on social media when they have done nothing wrong. It is a rocky time. If you look back to the French Revolution, you'll see the reasons for it, but the collateral damage was enormous. Many innocent people were killed. Finally, what came up in France is probably not what the original instigators have expected. But that's the nature of the revolution and I think it is necessary. I hope it settles down to something more humane. I think we should respect everybody regardless of their. We should make life as fair as we can. We know it is intrinsically unfair and will always be. But let's make it as fair as we can. Basically respect and love each other and be humane, kind and polite to each other irrespective of our UAL preference it is. At one point in time, you were an active donor to the Labour Party. What do you think of what's going on in Britain now? What are your thoughts on Brexit? I'm very depressed by the political muddle we are in. I don't like globalism, because I think it attacks the poor, puts too much money and power to large corporations and I think that attacks democracy. Even though I am against that, I believe we can fight that more strongly and more effectively from within Europe. I would like to continue to be a member of the EU. There is a lot of wrong with EU as there is a lot wrong with every organization. But if you have to change it, you have to change it from within. I think England, a very small island in the North Atlantic, will be much less powerful independent of EU. So, I think it is a shame. I think it is a step backward and I regret that vote, a very close one. We negotiated with Europe and discovered that we got a very bad exit deal. Now, I would like to see whether we want to stay or accept that bad deal. For that, we need to have another vote. I would not like to call it a referendum. I would like to call it a confirmatory vote, because when we voted in the referendum, we didn't have the necessary information. We were lied to by both the Conservative and Labour Party. And now we see clearly that we led to expect to get is not that. I would prefer to trade with European standards than American standards, which I think is much lower, in terms of food, agriculture and so on. That's why I want this confirmatory vote. Now then, if the country remains with the Brexit, the leaving vote, then we have to put up with it. I don't think referendum is very democratic. However, we had one. In all the forms of vote to be democratic, the voters must be informed. Otherwise, it is not democracy. It is populism. Now, some of us, who are reading and following the debates, I think, to make up for the first referendum, we should have a confirmatory vote. How do you want people to remember you? As a man who loved life and cared